All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, a new Morning Consult poll of the early primary states reveals that as Warren falls, the Democratic primary race is beginning to narrow to just two candidates, Biden and Bernie. So here's the poll. It's got Biden and Bernie essentially unchanged from last week at 25 and 20 respectively. Meanwhile, the second tier is made up of Buttigieg at 13% and Warren all the way down in fourth place at only 12%. And regardless of whatever CNN might tell you, it is not a strong fourth. Warren's current positioning represents a full 6-point plummet in a single week in this poll. We really haven't seen a drop of the sort that Warren seems to be experiencing right now since Kamala's fall from the top tier. Nate Silver's latest politics average has her down 5 points over just the last 3 weeks. Clearly, her Medicare for All equivocation has hurt her badly with voters. Meanwhile, Warren's fall has certainly been to the benefit of Mayor Pete. But while he's enjoyed the advantages of a media fetish, no one should really take him seriously as a real contender until he cracks more than 1% with black voters. Judging by the brutal Twitter thread issued yesterday by a black city councilman in South Bend, that is not going to be happening anytime soon. So even if he wins Iowa and places in New Hampshire, he's still going to get crushed in Nevada and South Carolina and the diverse states of Super Tuesday. So that leaves the race where it maybe should have been from the start, Biden versus Bernie. It's actually a pretty exciting state of affairs because these two men represent complete opposite ends of the ideological divide, two completely different explanations of the political moment that we are living through right now, two completely different theories of political change. It's democratic socialism versus neoliberalism. Trump is an aberration versus Trump is the symptom of a deep rot. Nothing is fundamentally going to change versus political revolution. Let's negotiate versus let's organize. It's a fascinating and vital debate within the party with massive implications for the future of the working class. Because in essence, these two men also represent a stark divide in where the future lies for the Democratic Party. Do they continue their march towards being an upper-class suburban party of the professional managerial class plus the working class minorities who can't stomach the other side's racism? Or do they start the process of reclaiming the mantle of the party of the people that centers a multiracial working class coalition? One path continues the Democratic Party in the direction of woke signaling while selling out on economics. The other embraces economic populism as an essential and non-negotiable core of the party. That is the argument I would love to watch play out explicitly in this primary process. There's also some reason to believe that Bernie may continue to surge and challenge Biden directly for frontrunner status. Bernie's already enjoying the strongest period of his campaign with a slow and steady rise over the past 2 months, and he's certainly emerging as the most trusted candidate on two issues of central importance to primary voters, healthcare and climate. But still, it's not quite enough. Enter billionaire Bloomberg, stage right wing. Now look, Bloomberg doesn't have a path to be the nominee, but as we've discussed a bit already on the show, he could take a few points from this candidate or from that candidate. The only person who is certain to not be impacted at all is Bernie Sanders, whose supporters are the most committed and certainly the most billionaire antagonistic. Already Bloomberg has jumped up to 5% in a pair of new national polls. It's amazing what $37 million in ad buys can get you. No one with literally unlimited funds and a prominent profile should be underestimated. But maybe even more significant for Bernie is the role that Bloomberg can play as a perfect foil for his campaign. Just think about it. Bernie has directly declared himself to be on the side of the working class in this nation's ongoing class war, and also literally stated that billionaires should not exist. Sure, Tom Steyer is already in the race, but no one really takes him seriously, and his weakness really just makes it feel mean to take shots at him. But Bloomberg is another matter. He's an oligarch and George W. Bush supporter trying to buy this election, and it appears that Bernie welcomes his hatred. Just take a listen to him the other night in South Carolina. Bernie has already worked Bloomberg into his routine.
What do I mean when I say the current political system is corrupt? All right, that's one thing. It means that if any of you had a couple of $1 billion, you could announce, and I know many of you do, I'm sure this room is loaded with billionaires. It's usually the audience that we attract. Any one of you can announce your candidacy for president, and you would be taken seriously, even if you were the dumbest person on earth.
He had previously inveighed against Bloomberg's arrogance and even accused him of undermining American democracy, which in a way he really is. Clearly, while Bernie wears kid gloves with Elizabeth Warren and is even fairly muted in his criticism of his friend Joe Biden, considering some of the things he certainly could say about Biden, he feels no such reservations with the billionaire businessman. Bloomberg is not and will never be Bernie's friend. And honestly, Bernie Unleashed is the best Bernie. Bloomberg, who is not only a corporatist but also a neocon, could not be a more perfect fit for Bernie and his class warfare campaign. So you've got Biden still holding tight at the top, a new Bloomberg dynamic helping to elevate Bernie, and a messy pileup among the wine track candidates of the affluent white liberals that is essentially neutering that vote. It sure does seem to be shaking out as a contest between Biden and Bernie, a battle of ideology, generation, and values. The grassroots will go toe-to-toe with the super PACs. May the best candidate for the working class prevail. Sagar, it really is exciting to me, the idea that it could be coming down to these guys.
Yeah,
Nothing could be more fun.
I do think that's exactly where the race is trending. It's funny because that's kind of how we started out. That's ultimately how we will. I think the staying power from the very beginning really was both on these sides. Both so obviously represent that ideological split within the party that it doesn't make any sense for anybody else to really rise up to try and take that mantle. I did think that, that Bernie clip is a good illustration of he can go after them whenever he wants, but he just won't do it. It baffles me whenever he doesn't go after Biden and Elizabeth Warren. He's like, oh, these people are my friends. It's like, now is not the time for friendship, man. Like, if you really believe your own rhetoric, if you believe this is an existential threat, if you believe that this is the last, look, he's 77 years old. I mean, this is truly the last real shot that he has at this thing, then he should be fighting all out for it. And I think every day he doesn't is a disservice to the people who support him.
No, I think that's right. Like, you should be more worried about the working class people that you're fighting for than Joe Biden's feelings.
Right,
like
exactly.
That's kind of the bottom line here. But I do think Bloomberg is a perfect foil for him. Beyond whatever he's going to pull in the polls, which he's going to get some non-insignificant number in the polls just because of the massive amounts of money. And look, there is a certain segment of the Democratic base that'll say, oh, he's a businessman, oh, he was a competent manager of New York City. I mean, he's got a real profile, et cetera. So he will pull some from the competitors. But I really think his bigger asset to the Sanders campaign is as a foil. What could be better than actually having a billionaire who runs a news organization, as you were talking about in your monologue, on the stage and on the ticket, as a foil for Bernie Sanders.
No,
it's
perfect. It's like it's like having Jeb Bush, like the son of the guy who got us into Iraq in 2016, because you can just point at it and be like, this is the problem. Like this whole thing right here, this is the issue. The $100 million behind him, support for this, repeating pro-Iraq war talking points and all that, defending his brother. I mean, there's nothing better than that whenever you're an outsider candidate. So it's fun to see Bloomberg in the race.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, next up on Rising. As the opioid epidemic continues destroying lives in the United States, presidential contender Andrew Yang is calling for a new kind of solution. My conversation with him on his drug plan and why it might just be the most radical proposal he has, that when Rising continues.